2 popes, 6 queens, and a king break up a church. Sounds like a bad joke, but it ain't. This is precisely what happened some 500 years ago, and it radically changed world history. Hi, my name is Sebastian, and you're watching Mistakes That Changed the World. During the Middle Ages, and well into the Renaissance, the Catholic Church was pretty much constantly in need of money. This was an era before the discovery of the Americas and its bountiful riches, and it was an era of a near-constant coinage crisis. Literally. There were no banknotes in Europe yet, which made things worse. And the Church had multiple financial obligations to fulfill. It had to financially support the clergy, fund its charitable endeavors, maintain its magnificent buildings, and let's not forget about the Papal States and their armies. All these endeavors required a significant amount of funds, and the Church had to find ways to sustain itself. As the Church played a central role in the lives of people during this period, its financial stability became paramount. But the absence of a reliable currency system and the absence of a vast new resource posed a considerable challenge. So, as any human organization would, the Church utilized every available tool to raise funds. One of these tools would sound outrageous or even ridiculous today, but then again we're not in the present. It was the power to forgive sins and to determine what a sin is and what isn't. But the truly inventive part is that the Catholic Church had, or rather gave itself, the power to forgive sins in advance. Sounds great, doesn't it? But salvation comes at a price. Priests across Western Europe were tasked with promoting indulgences, literal pardons, or more accurately, permits for sins. The idea was actually rather elegant. You bought an indulgence, the Church would then use that money for something good, because of course they did, and in return the Church forgave your sins as a gesture of gratitude for your contribution. Sounds tempting, doesn't it? It seemed like a win-win situation, or so it appeared. But as history unraveled, these indulgences became a major point of contention, sparking the flames of the Protestant Reformation. Criticism arose as people questioned the morality and fairness of buying salvation. This practice, among others, drove reformers to challenge the authority and teachings of the Catholic Church. So, to put it plainly, having money could grant you a free pass, even for the most heinous acts, at least in the eyes of the Vatican. This audacious product offered by the Church was met with outrage and disbelief even during that time. The pressure to reform the Catholic Church intensified not just from external Protestant forces but also from within its own ranks. Nevertheless, in the early 1500s, if your sin was grave enough and your donation was on par, you could buy an indulgence. This was especially true if there were kings involved. After all, just as it had been for centuries, the Catholic Church was as much a political institution as it was a spiritual entity. When he was elected in 1523, Pope Clement VII found himself in an incredibly challenging position. He inherited a politically volatile environment, deeply influenced by the seismic waves of the Protestant Reformation. And as these events unfolded, a series of errors further complicated his ability to grant concession to the King of England, Henry VIII. Between 1523 and 1527, the Pope's loyalty became a delicate balancing act between France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and various Italian princes. This constant instability ultimately proved disastrous, culminating in the infamous sack of Rome by the troops of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. His troops even took the Pope as prisoner for a while. Even though Charles did not explicitly order the attack and was somewhat embarrassed by the actions of his soldiers, he was compelled to confront the profound political consequences that followed. As a result, Pope Clement found himself effectively subordinate to the control of Charles V for the remainder of his pontificate. Now let's actually turn our attention to England under the Tudors. King Henry VII of England was at the helm of a burgeoning dynasty. He had 2 sons and 2 daughters, each with their own intriguing role to play in the royal chessboard of politics and power. The eldest son, Arthur, was destined to inherit the English crown, carrying the weight of the kingdom's expectations. His younger brother, Henry, possessed charisma and intellect that captivated the hearts of many. However, a different path was envisioned for young Henry, one that would steer him towards a life dedicated to the church. The strategic decision to guide Henry towards a religious vocation stemmed from a desire to avoid potential rivalries for the throne. By dedicating his life to the church, Henry would not be entangled in any power struggles, and neither would his descendants, who could one day claim the throne. Well, there wouldn't be any descendants in this case. During this period, England stood as a staunch stronghold of the Roman Catholic Church, fostering a close alliance with Spain led by the fervent King Ferdinand. In pursuit of strengthening the bond between England and Spain, an ambitious plan took shape. It was decided that Arthur would join in matrimony with Catherine of Aragon, the youngest daughter of Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. Little did they know that the consequences of this marriage would reverberate through history, influencing the course of English and European affairs for years to come. No one had anything against this arrangement, so when they were both about 14 years old, the young couple got married. By the way, 14 was considered adulthood in those times due to the small issue of high infant mortality, so don't freak out. The problems began when Arthur died of tuberculosis at the age of 15. Catherine became a very young widow, and with Henry being only 10 years old, the carefully planned political alliance that supported the Pope was suddenly jeopardized. The solution seemed to be for Henry to marry Catherine, but there was a problem. The Church had strict rules regarding the wives of brothers. For numerous social and practical reasons, marrying your brother's wife was considered a grave sin. Still, there had been far too many cases where a queen was forced to marry her brother-in-law to legitimize his claim for the throne. And the union of Catherine and Henry was too good of a deal, so Spain and England together appealed to Pope Julius II for an indulgence to allow the marriage. This effectively meant nullifying the sin and receiving the Church's blessing on the marriage. Taking into account the power behind the petitioners and a substantial percentage of the dowry, Julius II granted the indulgence. At that moment, no one thought that this single gesture would weaken the validity of the marriage. The indulgence was granted in 1503, but due to Henry's young age, the wedding did not take place until June 1509. Henry had been king for only 2 months when he got married, and everything seemed to be going in the desired direction for all those involved. Initially, the royal couple appeared happy. Over the next 9 years, Catherine gave birth to 3 sons and 3 daughters to Henry. But, except for one daughter, Mary, all of them died at a very young age. This, of course, was not just tragic, but also a political problem because having a son to inherit the throne was vital for the stability of England. It was also a matter of pride for Henry. It was likely equally important for the young and energetic, intelligent and promiscuous king that the burdens and the loss of so many children had aged Catherine. Now, if there had been 1 or 2 heirs, it might not have mattered, as even modern royal generations have shown, adultery was sort of an accepted practice. But there was no heir, and that really complicated the situation. Henry and England needed a male heir, and Catherine was no longer an attractive prospect. It was also likely that she could no longer bear children. This became a pressing issue. And things went from bad to worse. Henry began to show interest in a beauty from his court, Anne Boleyn. Anne was young, attractive, and available. With her, Henry could have both an heir and plenty of fun. But there was just one small problem, of course. The heir could only be born from the queen. An illegitimate child of the king's mistress could receive titles, but he could never ascend to the throne. Not legally, anyway. And Henry was still married to Catherine, who happened to be the daughter of the King of Spain. Given that Spain was then the wealthiest and most powerful nation in Europe, the whole situation represented a particularly sensitive political issue. But love defeats all, right? Well, love and lust. Henry wanted Anne, and he desperately wanted an heir, so he sent his highest priest, Cardinal Wolsey, to Rome to ask the Pope for another favour. This time, he wanted the indulgence that allowed him to marry Catherine in the first place to be annulled. He wanted an indulgence from the indulgence. If the initial pardon no longer existed, his marriage to Catherine would lose its validity. Henry would be free, his daughter Mary would be considered a bastard and therefore not a threat to the throne, and everyone would be happy, except Catherine and the entire Kingdom of Spain. Adding salt to injury, there was something else that complicated Henry's plan: a new pope. Julius II had passed away, and Clement was now the new ruler of Rome, and he took his religious duties much more seriously than his predecessor. The new pope was aware that Spain, above all kingdoms, donated much more money to the church than England ever could. Therefore, after careful arguments and political maneuverings, Pope Clement decided that the first indulgence remained valid. In the eyes of Rome, Henry was married to Catherine and would remain so. The Pope's decision put Henry in a difficult position. He and Anne were already very involved on a personal level, and she had made it clear that she would remain by his side as queen, but not as a mistress for the rest of her life. And the need for a male heir still remained. A wannabe queen mistress, a pissed-off queen, a public slap from the church, and no heir to the throne. This was one hell of a situation. But, amazingly, Henry found a solution. If Rome didn't allow him to dissolve his marriage, then he would break up with Rome. And with him, all of England would break away from the Roman Catholic Church. Countries and duchies throughout Europe were already doing the same thing as part of the Protestant movement. So Henry decided he was going to establish a new church, the Church of England, which he would control. The plan presented an additional monetary advantage. Henry needed money, and with this move, mighty Spain was going to be pissed off, so he was going to need a stronger fleet and army, and the sooner the better. But England never had enough cash to pay for all of these things. However, if the kingdom was to sever ties with Rome, then it would be acceptable to take over the church's properties, which was actually a significant fortune. So the breakaway would solve both the budget and the marriage issues in one fell swoop. The new Church of England, of course, nullified the infamous Indulgence, and Henry was free to marry Anne Boleyn. And then he got married 4 more times. Anyway, almost all the monasteries and churches in England were immediately seized and sold. While the new Church of England, or the Anglican Church, still practiced many Catholic rituals and beliefs, anyone who remained a stubborn Catholic could believe that any heir Henry and Anne would have had would not have the right to the throne. Therefore, Catholic subjects in England were immediately subjected to persecution after Henry's decision. In fact, Roman Catholic churches and priests who remained in England were illegal until the late 19th century. Among the victims of this violent and sustained persecution against Catholics was the Venerable Sir Thomas More, the man who had helped Henry years ago in writing a book defending the Catholic Church against the attacks of Martin Luther. More was executed after refusing to attend Anne's coronation. And that was only the beginning of a violent cycle that would trouble England for centuries. Throughout his life, Henry VIII had a total of 6 wives and 3 legitimate heirs: Edward, son of Jane Seymour, Mary, daughter of Catherine of Aragon, and Elizabeth, daughter of Anne Boleyn. After Henry's death, Edward VI ascended to the throne, but he fell ill and died shortly after. Mary followed him, and she reinstated Catholicism in England. She earned the nickname Bloody Mary due to the execution of hundreds of dissidents during her reign. Upon her death, Elizabeth took the throne and once again re-established the Church of England. This episode in history is a great example of the butterfly effect, or how one small act can start a huge storm. If Pope Julius II hadn't granted the indulgence, Henry wouldn't have married Ferdinand's beloved daughter, whom he later felt compelled to divorce. Spain would probably have remained an ally of England, altering the fate of Europe for 2 centuries. With England supporting Catholicism, the Protestant Reformation would have been very different and spread much less. An England allied with Spain and France, instead of supporting Protestant states, would have made a military difference that could have condemned Protestantism. Who knows, Henry could have even met the woman of his dreams. Even that alone would have meant a tremendous difference for the women Henry VIII married, not the least because it would have saved their heads and lives. Oh yeah, Anne Boleyn was charged with adultery and was beheaded by Henry, as was Catherine Howard, a later wife of his. In the end, Henry VIII, a king by divine right, managed to escape unscathed after divorcing 2 wives, beheading 2 others, and establishing the Church of England in opposition of Rome. Pope Clement's decision not to grant Henry the annulment of the Indulgence caused the schism within his own church, leading to decades of sectarian violence in England. If Pope Clement had yielded to Henry's request, Anglicanism would not have existed and Catholicism would look very different today. In this story, many mistakes were made, and I'll let you decide who made the right calls and who didn't. But the fact of the matter is that 2 papal decisions dramatically changed the political and religious landscapes of Europe and ultimately the world. I hope this video was interesting enough to have inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. You can leave your comments downstairs, and you can also check out my Patreon page if you want to support me. I do hope to see you next time. Bye.